Hello everyone, I have another story to share with you. This time I am sharing a story from the New Testament, like last week, from the book of Matthew, which is the first book in the Bible in the New Testament. And Matthew was a tax collector, I've told you that before, and he became a disciple who later wrote stories and the teachings of Jesus. And yeah, this story is way too exciting not to tell it to you. It's a story about Jesus and the disciples in a boat. Actually, it takes place just right after the story from last week, where Jesus and a child feed the 5,000, feed so many people. And so this one just happens right after that. Before I read it, you might want to think about the times that you have been afraid, and what fear does for you. Is sometimes fear protects you and it keeps you from doing dangerous things, which is good. And then sometimes fear keeps you from doing things you might be able to do, but you're just too afraid to do. So there's sometimes fear is good, and sometimes fear kind of gets in the way. So this is a story where that happens to one of the disciples. And so I'm just going to read it to you and share some pictures that I've painted for you, and maybe I'll come back and talk about it a little bit more after. All right, here we go. Jesus walks on the water, from Matthew 14, verses 22 to 32. Then Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side of the lake while he sent the people away. After sending the people away, he went up a hill by himself to pray. When evening came, Jesus was there all alone. And by this time, the boat was far out in the lake, tossed about by the waves because the wind was blowing against it. Between 3 and 6 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came to the disciples walking on the water. When they saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and screamed with fear. Jesus spoke to them at once. "Courage," he said. "It is I. Don't be afraid." Then Peter spoke up. "Lord, if it is really you, order me to come out to the water to you." "Come," Jesus answered. So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water to Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he was afraid and started to sink down in the water. "Save me, Lord," he cried. At once, Jesus reached out and grabbed hold of him and said, "What little faith you have! Why did you doubt?" They both got into the boat and the wind died down. Then the disciples in the boat worshipped Jesus. "Truly, you are the Son of God," they exclaimed. So in this story, it's a pretty exciting story, isn't it? In this story, you'll notice that the disciples are afraid. They're afraid a couple of times. They're afraid because the storm is blowing, or the wind is blowing the water against the boat, and so they're tossed in the waves. And they're afraid because they see Jesus on the water, and they don't quite believe that it's Jesus. When they first see Jesus, they think that Jesus is a ghost. And do you remember the word that Jesus uses to help them? He says courage. So courage is a word that can help you when you're feeling afraid. Like, have courage. It's a good word to remember, Jesus using. And then Peter is brave, and he decides that he wants to try walking on water as well. And for a while he's successful, isn't he? And then he starts thinking about where he is. And can you imagine? I think I would be like Peter for sure. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, I am walking on water. And then I would start to think about where I was and the fact that the waves are tossing you. Almost not quite believing that this is happening. And Peter does fall in the water, and then Jesus is there for him. So in this story, it just teaches us that it's important to remember that God is always with us, even through our fears, and to have courage. So have a good week, everyone, and continue to enjoy the summer. All right, isn't this a beautiful day today? This is Saturday, while I'm doing this with you. But goodness me, the weather is fine, and I just want you all to have a beautiful summer, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.